and gentlemen,
this is the one we've all been waiting for.
It's good night, Drake and Irene! Let's get ready to rumble!
Time! And knows how to knock people the fire truck out.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fight Chase podcast, Muay Thai and MMA. My name is Kelly. I'm here from Fight Chase. I'm here along with Kurt.
Yep, Kurt from Carson Kickboxing Club.
And today we have a special guest, our friend Panda.
How's it going?
What's going on, buddy? How you been?
Pretty good. Just getting ready for more fights this weekend. Got students fighting, trying to get them every week.
So basically, Kurt and I and Panda, Matt, we're all from one fight team back in Las Vegas, and now we're all in different parts of the world. So what have you been up to since you left Vegas?
Oh, man, it's crazy the things that life does to you. Bounced around, trying to find, traces to train and feel at home. Finally found this little boxing gym in St. Cloud, Minnesota, called the St. Cloud Boxing and Wrestling Club. Been teaching here for about 4 years now.
You teaching everything or jiu-jitsu? What are you teaching over there?
I got my USA Boxing certification, so I'm a certified USA Boxing coach. I teach boxing, I teach Muay Thai 2 days a week, and I teach gi and no gi jiu-jitsu. And I coach all the competitors that fight in MMA and kickboxing.
Yeah, you're always posting on social media, like cornering this guy and that guy at all different events.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. There's a pretty good scene of fighting around here. They got kickboxing, they got boxing, they got MMA, all locally, and it's all sanctioned bouts. Nothing really shady going on.
Nothing shady, and Kurt always tells me a story about fighting in a parking lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I did one of those up here once, but it was in Wisconsin, not Minnesota.
How long were you at Juan's? I mean, you were there when I started, and that was 2013 or something. I started there. How long were you there, Matt?
I started at Vanderlei's. I was there. The official day they opened was March 1st, 2009, and I was there actually 2 weeks before that. I was one of the original students from the day the doors opened on March 1st, 2009, and I trained there until March of 2013. So I was there for about 5 years.
Oh, very nice.
How'd you end up there?
I was the fat guy sitting on the couch telling all my friends I can do that when we were watching fights. The cool thing about it was I got off the couch and drove to Vegas, and just so happened that there was a 30-foot picture on the side of the building. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go train there. I moved to Vegas from Minnesota. I made the decision to take a fight in 2008 on a whim, and a bunch of people told me I should train and I could probably do pretty good. So I, upped and moved to Vegas, sold my house, my car, my dogs and everything, and went to go be a fighter. So I got there in February 2009 and was there ever since. Never trained anywhere else while I was in Vegas. Juan was my home.
What was the original staff? You remember those? I'm sure you remember it vividly.
So
I remember my first.
The first coaches we had was Vitor Viana. He was the first jiu-jitsu coach we had, and George Lopez was the first MMA coach, and our first kickboxing coach was actually a woman named Kim Messer, but she was married to a man named, and she changed her last name to Kaminsky. But if you look up her fights, her name was Kim Messer, and she was a small Asian lady, and she used to work us like Amish plow horses. And our first boxing coach that Vanderlei hired was actually Roger Mayweather, but he wasn't the best at running a class, so that didn't last very long.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, we had Roger for about a month. And
how was it working with him?
He taught me a lot of good drills to make your punches faster and to make the snap of your jab quicker and just overall like faster punching.
When I was, I just trained with Sagat out here. Sagat.
Yeah, I know.
Pettenby.
I'm jealous.
And that was one of the things like he was really adamant about, and he was telling me, he's like, you can't, when you strike, and his analogy was like, he's like, same as Snake. He goes, when you throw a punch, it has to be the same as, it has to hit hard, but it has to be right back. It has to be fast. And he was really adamant about telling me, like Snake, they have to strike.
Yeah. No, it's the truth. Like, the speed kills when you're a striker.
Power doesn't hurt.
Hey, no, unless you're on the receiving end.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And I met you. I had signed up at Vanderlei's and not even attended a class. And I remember I was like all hyped up. I was like, damn, I gotta go get some gear. And I went over to OTM, and that's where I didn't know what to buy. I mean, I was a UFC fan, a Pride fan, King of the Cage, even like videos from back in the day. And I was like, man, I gotta get some gear. What do I get? And I went in, and that's when I met Panda. And he's like, yo, get this, got some they're the OTM brand gloves and shin pads, and I was like, all right, cool, and picked out some white and black gloves and some white shin pads, and I was like, we're ready to go. And that's where I met Panda, and I was like, and he's like, where are you training at? And I'm like, oh, I just signed up at Vanderlei's, and he's like, oh, well, that's my gym. And I was like, cool. And so kind of like hit it off immediately, and you were kind of the first person that I met from the gym because I hadn't even trained there yet.
Well, I always took pride in like being one of the original students. So whenever somebody joined the gym, I always made sure they felt welcome because Vanderlei was very welcoming to everybody. I remember every morning when he would come in the gym, he would shake every single person in the gym's hand and tell them good morning before he ever started his day. So I always tried to represent our gym the same way.
And that kind of, for me, that was passed on, from the girl that was at the counter. Like everybody remembers her name, and I keep forgetting it. When I first walked into the place, she was so nice, showed me around the whole gym, and then I met you, and it was the same thing. It was so inviting and such, like a good vibe. And so just like you, I tried to pass that same thing on. It's like when a new person would start, I would, try and help them, motivate them, just be as positive as possible to keep that vibe in the gym.
So the biggest thing about Vanderlei's is we trained super hard, and we were, family at the same time. It was never, malicious intent to hurt each other, even though we were, basically trying to hurt each other.
That's not what the videos show. Every time I see the video of Vanderlei and Michael, I'm like, you guys don't know the story, because you've both seen that video, right? When somebody posts it up about Vanderlei beating up one of his trainers or something.
Oh yeah, no, I remember I was gone for a fight that weekend, so all that I was competing, and so I was out of town, and all that got filmed while I wasn't there.
And it was like, if you watch the video and you're one of us, that was just how it went down, and they were cool. Like, they were best friends.
That was before we even wore headgear all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And you watch the video, and then you hear all these, these fucking guys that are sitting on their couches going, oh, that's horrible, and they've never stepped foot in a gym. And they don't understand, like, they take it way out of context, and they don't understand that, like, Vanderlei was the nicest guy in the world. I had the privilege I trained jiu-jitsu with him. With Vanderlei Silva, and people are like, he trained jiu-jitsu? I'm like, yeah. It was out of the blue because it was very rare, but I got to train, jiu-jitsu with him, and it was so respectful. He's not giving you anything, but it was super, like, he was training with you, and that's how, like, that video comes out every once in a while, and I don't comment on videos. I don't like to comment on videos. Everybody has their stupid opinion. Mostly it's negative. But when I see that video, I'm like, yo, guys, you don't understand the backstory. They're friends. That's hard training. That's how Vanderlei's was brought up.
Yeah. No, the funniest part about those old videos is, like, it was like that every day. We went super hard, and to the outsider, it probably looked really bad, but, as a team, we were winning back and forth. We were always winning our fights. So, whatever we were doing must have paid off because, it's very seldom that we went anywhere and didn't get that W.
Oh yeah, it was very Vanderlei was a very dominant team, for a long time. We were looked at as more of the hardcore gym. I mean, you had other gyms in Vegas, but it was the guys at Vanderlei's are tough.
Yeah. Well,
I mean coming from him,
he instilled that into us from day one. So his and whenever he was in the gym, you could tell the electricity in the air was just a little thicker. Like everyone was going a little harder, and I don't know. It was probably the best time of my life. So.
it was a little thicker because he turned off the swamp coolers and opened up the doors in Vegas. So that was always nice and hot. But yeah, no, it was kind of like we all wanted to not impress, but kind of put that extra effort in to show him that we appreciated it. Anytime he was on the mats or watching, training, like you said, everybody would go a little harder, put a little more in. Because you wanted to give him the respect of, hey, this is what you showed us. This is kind of the work ethic that we're trying to give back to you, to represent his name.
Definitely. I can recall my favorite experience of training with Vanderlei. It was on a Sunday. There was only 6 of us in the gym. It was myself, Vanderlei, Vitor, Minotauro Nogueira. I believe Bill Frazier was with us that day. And a guy who trained at the gym named Peter Simone. And it was a Sunday. It was when they were leading up to their fights in Australia versus Michael Bisping and Cain Velasquez. And Vanderlei was always a big, he would cheer us on when someone famous was in the gym and we had to train against them. And, I was rolling with Minotauro. Vanderlei had just got up, so he was pretty tired because he had just went with Vanderlei for the last minute or so, and we were doing the Shark Tank, so everyone was fresh, and I just so happened to get the very last minute, and I got the takedown, and I got past his guard, and Vanderlei would tell everyone that I did that, and to me, it only lasted 1 second, and then the bell rang, so. To me, it was a little victory, but to have Vanderlei remember that part and cheer me on while I was doing it was probably my one of my favorite experiences at the gym.
Oh yeah. And just when he would when I won Worlds and he was after I saw him, from then on he just called me champion, and and it was we would go. I remember and I rolled with him. That's how I rolled with him. He called me out. He was like, "Yo, champion." And I'm like, oh no. I'm like, well, what? And he's like, because he sat down when we were stretching before we were gonna roll, and it was when Ricardo was there. So he was sitting, and I'm like, oh, he's just talking to him, blah blah blah, and he's like, champion, me and you. I'm like, me and you what? I'm like, I haven't seen you on the mat in jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, oh god, I got to pay for this championship now. And
yeah.
He rolled with me. It was super cool. It was just it's an otherworldly experience, really. Because, it's Vanderlei Silva. He's the Pride legend. He's the axe murderer, but he's also your friend. Once we were there long enough that all of us, had relationships with him, that he was a good friend. I had a different relationship because I owned a business, and he would talk to me about business and things. But it was really cool. And I remember after I rolled with him, we went to some fights, and he would sit with the young kids. He was a good mentor to the kids and stuff. And we were sitting there, and there wasn't any seats, and he got up and goes, "No, champion, take my seat." And I'm like, "No." I'm not taking your seat. I'm gonna pay for that later. He's like, "No, sit down. I'm like, all right. He made one of the kids move, but I was like, for him to. Someone of that stature that we all held in high regards, to acknowledge even something that you did under his name. When I went and competed at Worlds and Kurt was with me, we did it as a team. we wanted to go and represent the team. You know, it wasn't even really in my head, oh, I want to win a world championship for me. It's just like any of those little things that Vanderlei recognized in all of us, you know, whether it was when I won worlds in 2013, and I wanted to do it more for the gym than I did ever for myself. I was like, they said, oh, you know, there's never been a jiu-jitsu world champion here. And I'm like, you know what? Why I could do that. Just like you were saying, you know, somebody's like, you were sitting there and you're like, I could fight. You know, I was like, yeah, I could win worlds. I don't know how the hell I thought I was going to win worlds. But just, you know, I started training with Kurt and a few of the other guys like every day. And I was like, yo, I'm going to go do that. And when I did it, like, I was just proud to show like Vanderlei. I was like, yo, this is what we have. You know, it wasn't, oh, I won this and I'm cool. It was like, this, look what the gym has now. So that was like, to me, it was awesome when he recognized that.
Yeah, the biggest thing, he was very special in how he treated us. I remember there was the Fedor versus Fabricio Verdum fights. We were all watching them at one of the students' houses, and him and Vanderlei's son went to school together. So Vanderlei and him, you know, were spent quite a bit of time together. And we go over to his house, and the whole living room is full of people. And Vanderlei, you know, shows up fashionably late. And as soon as he shows up, it's like the Red Sea parts, and everyone gives him a spot to the couch. And he's just like, no, sit. And he just sat on the floor watching the fights with the rest of us, like, you know, didn't want anybody to give him their seat for him.
Yeah, he was always like one of us. He wasn't, you know, the axe murderer to us.
Yeah, he treated us as teammates and equals. He didn't treat us as like beneath him ever.
Yeah, he's always super cool. I remember when I was teaching the kids jiu-jitsu class, it always tripped me out because he'd walk up and be like, oh, hey, coach, how's it going? It was just so weird to hear him call me coach, you know? It was pretty cool.
I mean, we all kind of, I would say, ended up there. I mean, I ended up there. It was Vanderlei Silva's gym. Like, if you want to go train somewhere like MMA, I mean, it's Vanderlei Silva.
Yeah, the same reason I started training there is exactly what Panda was talking about earlier. I started training there because the first day I came in, I was, you know, getting my gear out of my bag, and he made a point to tap me on the shoulder and, you know, shake my hand before I went in there and start training, and that meant a lot to me. So, yeah, that's why I chose his gym.
Yeah, the first time I remember meeting him, I think it was after a class, and he had just come back. I think he was in Brazil, and because it was like a weekend to train, like to me being a member, and he came up and I watched him when we had the bleachers on the side there, and I was like, whoa, it's Vanderlei Silva, you know, like you see his pictures and he had the trophies and things, but it was like, oh, I wonder if he comes in because I hadn't met him yet, and then he literally, it didn't matter who you were, man, woman, you know, kids. He would shake everybody's hand equally, and he came over and he's like, "Thank you." I remember him saying "thank you" to me, and I'm like, "Huh?" Like, what do you thank you? Like, thank you. Yeah, he was a very very humble, unique guy, and it was an honor to be able to be a partner, you know, a part of that gym.
You know, being part of that team was It created a lot of strong relationships. I've met so many people through that gym. You know, it's hard to believe like guys like Khalil Roundtree would you know, reach the heights that he has in such a short period of time after, you know, he just started training 2009 or 2010, I think is when he joined the gym, 2010, 2011. So
right off the couch.
Yeah, like to see him, you know, become as great as he has, and his star still shooting, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
it was cool, like even like you said. I mean, the relationships that you made there, all of us that are literally on the opposite ends of the earth right now are still friends. Khalil was out here, and I spent a bunch of time. I spent like 3 weeks with Khalil in Thailand. Like, we knew each other from Vegas. You know, it's such a cool thing that team really cemented a lot of friendships.
Not only that, but like, you know, the opportunities to train with, you know, already famous people like Jose Pele, Landy Johns, you know, just our coaches, Vitor and Michael and Sydney, you know, training with them. But like, you know, so many famous people came through the gym, like the Nogueira brothers and Dos Santos and Thiago Silva, and, you know, just countless guys in the UFC that we were blessed to be able to train with because they wanted to train with Vanderlei.
Yeah. It would seem to be any Brazilian that came into Vegas, they all trained with us.
All the Brazilians, all the Asians, the Japanese
Yeah.
guys, Chinese guys, they always came, and they always super respectful, hard training. Some of the worst beatings were from the guys that didn't speak English.
Oh no, there's times I remember the Chinese top team came in. I don't know what they were doing.
Oh, I remember them.
And I was rolling with one of the guys, and their coach is like standing over us yelling at the guy. And I'm like, what the fuck is he saying? I'm like, and he's like yelling in Chinese over my, like, I'm like, what is he telling him to kill me, or, you know, what is going on? But those guys were tough. Those are like, they were tough dudes, and it was really cool. But yeah,
man, those guys were cut from concrete.
Yeah, we had so many amazing people. And then the cool part was, like, even the guys that were up and comers that would come in and train with us that we didn't know. Like, you don't know who was there for what. We'd always have drop-ins, you know, because of it being a famous gym. But there's nights that you'd be training, and, like, you know, one of the coaches would come over and go, hey, do, you know, work this, or go light, the guy's cutting weight. And then you realize, like, the next night he was fighting in the UFC.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay. But we had an opportunity that most people don't have. I mean, when I go to other gyms and they're like, oh, you trained at Vanderlei's, and they're like, who'd you get to train with? And you start listing off people, and like Cyborg would come in. And I mean, I remember before they built the UFC gym down the road for the show, all those teams would come into the gym. Like, they would come in before the filming started. And I was like, oh, you know, you got to meet a ton of the up and coming fighters in the UFC just from that.
It's you talk about all the people that we trained with. It's kind of funny because, like, a lot of people where I live, because it's such a small area, you know, they don't think like you could meet all those famous people and train with them. So it's like you got to almost try to convince them that I was training with those people. I promise.
That's what I have now. Like, the access, like, you guys see that now, is the access of champions that I have out here is unreal. Like, I can go to these gyms and meet the absolute best Muay Thai fighters in the world from history, and I can go train with these guys. And people, like, if you've never been here, it's kind of surreal. I mean, it's even surreal to me to be able to go, okay, I'm just gonna show up at this small gym, and, you know, Sanchai's hanging out. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, like Sagat and Samart. I mean, come on. If you're into Muay Thai, you're like, holy crap, these guys are, you know, living legends. And we had that kind of, and it is harder in the States because it's so big, but we had that exposure at Vanderlei's. You know, we had a lot of people that you tell stories, and people are like, you didn't really meet that guy. I mean, how many stories have you told about watching Vanderlei spar with, you know, some other great fighter, and people are like, you just watched that? It's like a pay-per-view. We would watch these guys training. You know, it's definitely a cool thing.
Yeah, the coolest thing I'm probably doing now, I work for the state athletic commission here.
Oh, nice.
And so I get to work I do a lot of the pro boxing in the area. And I'll be working the UFC June 29th when Junior Dos Santos fights Francis Ngannou.
What does that all entail? What do you get to do?
So, you know, whenever you watch fights, you see the fighter, and then there's the coaches and stuff, and then there's the guy in the suit. Well, I'll be the guy in the suit.
Oh, okay.
What I do is I'm the one that checks the hand wraps. I got to sign off on them. I walk the fighters to the ring. I make sure, you know, the corners aren't doing anything shady. You know, there's a little bit that goes on to it, but, you know, we don't actually get to watch a lot of the fight, but we're, you know, right there, things side. We have other stuff that we have to do and pay attention to. That's what our jobs are. We're not technically getting paid to watch the fight.
How long after you started at Vanderlei's did you take your first fight?
It was 7 months. So when I started at Vanderlei's, I was like 300 pounds, and then I lost 70 pounds in 7 months and took my first fight.
Going back to working for the commission, is there any conflict there, like being a coach and being working for the athletic commission? Like, can you work an event with your fighters or no?
Well, no. If my fighters are fighting, I would be coaching. So, I mean, I'm a licensed corner in the state, in multiple states, and normally if I have fighters fighting, I'm not working the event. And if I know fighters, I'll usually work in the opposite corner to them instead of in their corner.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I mean, the scene here is pretty small. It's been the same commission for the last, I've been fighting around here since 2011. So it's been the same commission since then. So it's a good, tight-knit little group. And I believe that the Minnesota State Athletic Commission has one of the best commissions in the whole world. Like, they work really hard to follow the rules and be fair, and they treat everyone with respect. And I mean, we have so many events. They do a great job. They really do.
So you're out there. You're working with the amateur fighters, but you're working with pro fighters too. I think I saw you working a Glory event not too long ago.
Yeah, I'm a friend of Maurice Green. He's now in the UFC, and he was a Glory kickboxer when I first met him back in 2014, and he asked me to be in his corner for that fight. It was a hometown fight in Chicago. He's from Chicago, so I got the blessing to work in his corner, and it was a really great experience.
Oh, very nice. So you said he's in the UFC right now? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, he was on The Ultimate Fighter and ended up getting a contract through, being a good personality and being a quality fighter at the same time.
Oh, wow. I didn't even know that. I just knew him as a kickboxer. I didn't even know he transitioned to MMA.
Yeah, he's a pretty good MMA fighter. He trains out of Brock Larson's gym, which is like directly across the street from my gym.
Oh, nice.
Oh, nice.
Nice little cross the street rivalry. It's friendly.
Yeah. Those are the best ones.
Weren't you buddies with him?
Yeah, Brock Larson got me my start when I had my first fight in 2008. I've been his friend for about 12 years now. We worked together for a little while. Kind of just trying to do my own thing, though. I'm trying to build my own fighters.
Yeah.
In our one fight team fashion.
Yeah, are you still training guys like how we trained?
You better believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes over pretty well.
I've had many people quit my gym and go other places because the training is rough.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, I don't have to imagine. I just have to remember.
Like, it's gonna be hard, and it's never going to get any easier. But I got some great students. Some of them have been with me for about 4 years now, and they're finally starting to come into their own in their technique. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. But got a lot of up and coming amateurs and up and coming kickboxers and boxers. We got about.
What are you really focusing on?
We don't. We take what we get. Like, if there's boxing matches, we'll do some of those. If there's kickboxing, we'll do some of those. If it's jiu-jitsu tournament, we'll do that. If it's MMA fights, we'll do that.
So you have a fight team and then kind of get them to do whatever's available?
Kind of, yeah. It's, and everyone being amateur, the more stuff that they can do individually will just create better MMA fighters.
Yeah, definitely.
I got some guys that just want to box. I got two. I guess you would call them cruiserweights that are been training with me for a while, and they're going to take their first match in October, and that'll be just boxing. And then I have multiple MMA fighters that fight on a regular basis. I just had a fighter fight in LFA. She lost a razor close split decision in her second MMA fight. I have kickboxers fighting August 4th, and in kickboxing, we have more MMA fights in September. Like it never stops. We never stop grinding.
That's the best thing about combat sports. There's no season.
Yeah, there's no off season, so you can just stay at it. That's the best part.
Yeah. And like you said, you can diversify if you're an MMA fighter and a Muay Thai match comes out and you're still coming up, just get at it. Get the experience.
I'm a coach right now while we're doing this, so it never stops.
Yeah, Kurt's got a bunch of guys coming up over there with him. He's building a good program over.
Oh yeah, a bunch of guys. I have fighting this month coming up in June. I think we have 3 competitions, and we just did one on Friday. We just had a
And I think it's kind of cool that, because I was teaching at the Henzo Gracie's in New Hampshire after training out here, that we all kind of stemmed from, Juan's, and then just from life experiences. When I was teaching more of what I learned over here in Thailand. I kind of wanted to go back to that, but it still reflected on, the work ethic at Juan's and how, where my base was from, to make everyone work, to keep everybody enjoying the training, but work them, as hard as you can to get people to enjoy it and to improve. But it's cool that all 3 of us have expanded out into coaching, but all came from the same start, basically.
Well, me getting into coaching was more along the lines of I started training MMA when I was 28, so I didn't have ideals of grandeur that I was going to be some UFC champ.
Right.
So I knew if I was going to stay in it for a long time, I would have to be a coach. And
yeah,
I figured I started young enough where I can be with students for a very long time because I'm so young. It's not like, Mike Tyson finding custom model when he was 80.
Definitely.
Be able to put, 15 years in with a couple students and watch them become champions.
Yeah, that's my thoughts exactly.
And in this game, there's so much to learn. I'll never stop learning, even as a coach.
Oh, of course not. Different techniques to improve the coaching or recovery. I mean, there's just the game is not small. It's not punch kick. There's so much more to it. And then, even just keeping people motivated is a whole nother part of coaching. People don't want to get beat up. At the end of the day, nobody wants to get beat up, but you got to find a way to motivate these people to push themselves. You believe in them, and then they believe in themselves, which is cool.
Definitely. Stay off your heels. The one thing I always try to explain to my students and push the fact is no matter what we do, the fight, when it happens, we never know what's going to happen. No matter how much we train, no matter how much we think we know what's going to happen, that's why we fight, because we never know. And that's probably the hardest thing to grasp when they first start fighting is it's not always going to go the way you want to, so you got to find ways to keep pushing.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many ups and downs, injuries, whatever it is, getting and the I had a fighter that got dropped on his head. Kurt and I were talking about it. And he went for an armbar, and the guy's a killer jiu-jitsu guy. I mean, legit monster, young kid. And he had an armbar, and it was so tight the guy should have tapped, and the guy kind of muscled out of it. And you know how that is. Somebody's got an armbar, and when they extend their arm, you're like, yo, I have this. I'm not letting go. And he got spiked on his head and knocked out, and it was his first loss in MMA. And he was super down about it, but we're like, you can't even prepare for that. We don't have a drill for that. We don't. That's a freak accident. You can't let that be the determining factor in what plays out in the rest of if you want this as a career, you kind of, that's what's cool about the ties is we've talked about
They
it a
don't care
bunch of
about
times.
they don't care about the win and the loss so much.
No, it's a fight. It's your fight record, and they don't even really care about the fight record. When I ask them, I'm like, how many fights? They have an roundabout number. I just trained with Supergirl. She's 14, and I trained with her and her dad, and some of the most vicious knees that you'll ever see. And I wanted to learn that style, and I said, how many fights does she have at 14? And he's like, more than 30. Like, kind of like it was no big deal, but we don't really know.
Yeah, it's funny. I have fighters that have more fights than I do.
Yeah. Over here, I mean, fights are in hundreds, and it's like they kind of we fight. And it's a huge thing that I love about this culture is the respect before and after. It's an eye-opening experience when you come here and you see what really goes down, especially at even the big stadium fights, as far as they're not even in separate like dressing rooms, like warm-up rooms. They'll be laying on the beds next to each other when they get, the massage before they go out. They'll sit next to each other before they walk out to the ring. There's not this hyped up animosity when you're before a fight. And when I was speaking to the coach the other day, I was asking him about the Y crew, and he's like, he's like, how you Americans jump around and get excited and yell before you fight? I'm like, I don't, but yeah, I understand what you're saying. And he goes, the Y crew, the Muay is that's our relaxation. That's our focus. We're walking around, we're getting focused, we're relaxed, getting acclimated to the ring. But that's how in Muay Thai they focus, whereas we get hyped up, they have to calm down.
I myself am a calm fighter. I don't get really jacked up before the fights. I always tried to emulate Fedor Emelianenko. I thought he was very cold in his demeanor. And when you're cool like that, you can think. And when you're angry, you can't think. And if you fight angry, you're just gonna end up getting tired and missing punches and kicks and being angry that you're missing, and then it's just gonna be a snowball effect. So I always try to instill like being calm and being collected and working, have a purpose in what you're doing and not just winging it.
Yeah, it's more of like a serial killer mode.
Yeah.
Very, very focused on your task.
That's a good explanation.
Yeah, I think I heard Gus D'Amato say before too. It's like you need to be relaxed, and then when you get hit, you need to be twice as relaxed. So it's really, you start getting angry, exactly like what he's saying. You're gonna start making lots and lots of mistakes, and your body's not gonna react the way that you want it to because it's gonna be all stiff.
Yeah, that extra adrenaline, and you're not thinking things through, and you'll throw the muscle memory out the window because I got hit, and I got to hit him back harder, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of Gus D'Amato's teachings. I've read all his books. I've seen all Mike Tyson's movies. I've read Tyson's book. Gus D'Amato, in my eyes, for someone that never fought, was a fight genius. Created the two youngest heavyweight champions of all time. I use a lot of his teachings in my boxing stuff. I also use a lot of his teachings when I teach my Muay Thai. Like his peekaboo style really fits well into any fighting style.
I got a question for both of you guys. I'm the only one of us that, like, I competed in jiu-jitsu, but I haven't fought. You have both competed. You both fought. I haven't fought. So, like, I've heard both sides of the story. Like, oh, you have to have walked in the shoes to be able to teach. And then I hear, if you can do different things to be a proficient teacher. You guys have both fought. So what do you guys think about having to fight to be able to teach over, other ways around it?
I would have to say, from personal experience, I'm going to be more apt as a fighter to want to listen to somebody that's actually been in the ring. That doesn't mean that someone cannot be a good coach of of fighters, of technique, if they haven't fought. But just
I
my
gotcha.
personal, my ability to absorb is going to be far easier from someone that I think can kick my butt, like Vitor or Vanderlei or those guys. I was absorbing everything they had because I couldn't beat them at what we did, so I needed to learn all that stuff.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But again, there's great coaches that weren't great fighters. Sean Tompkins was not the best fighter in the world, but created some really good fighters in his short time on this earth, before he passed away. So you don't have to be a world champion to be a great coach. You don't have to have a million fights to be a great coach. You just have to have a great fight mind, in my opinion, and be able to articulate it correctly to each individual that you work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think too, a lot of times it's like you have to look at what the coach is producing, because regardless of his fight record, just look at the type of fighters that he's producing. It kind of gives you a good idea whether or not he's a good coach. Like Firas Zahabi's never had a single MMA fight, and he's coached to multiple champions, and Craig Jackson too. He's never had an MMA fight.
Were they fighters like kickboxing or anything?
I think Firas Zahabi's had kickboxing, but Greg Jackson has no competition experience whatsoever, I believe.
He's a really smart guy.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too is like if you don't have the fight experience, it's like you can get that type of knowledge through mentorship. Like if you hang around a lot of great fighters who turn into coaches, you could absorb a lot of that information just as long as you're really open-minded and you're always asking the right questions. Like you could become like a really great coach without ever having to fight. But it's just it's much easier to see the proof when they actually have already fought.
Yeah, and I can understand where it's like the peer thing. Like, how are you going to tell me how to not get hit or whatever if you've never done it? So, but I think also with that is like you said, is how you approach it, and if the fighters are improving with what you're giving them, then it kind of would negate having to make that walk.
No, totally agreed.
I'm just defending myself because I haven't fought. I've been offered fights to get beat up over here.
Oh yeah, they'll do that over there. They'll want to make a little extra money off you.
Yeah, they will set you up in an instant over here.
That's all right. When I come over there, you can set me up, and I'll take the beating for us.
Yeah. No, it's weird. Like I trained at a gym. I trained one day at a gym, and the guy's like, "You want to fight?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "You want to fight? I got a fight for you." I'm like, how do you don't even know me? How do you have a fight for me? You don't know what I could do? We trained for an hour. And he's like, no. He goes, how big? Or he goes, I have a guy same size as you, same weight. And then he asked me what I weigh, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. How do you have a guy like the same weight as me, and you don't even know what I weigh? And then he goes, same age, and I'm like, and now you're gonna. And then he did. He's like, how old are you? I'm like, how are you pulling this off? You're definitely just trying to set me up, And he's like, yeah, we have a fight, and he told me at a stadium like the next day. I'm like, I almost did it, but I was actually leaving to go to one of the islands. But yeah, they'll set you up real quick.
I mean, again, like it's a process to create quality fighters. Like, there's going to be some learning curves, and I try to explain to my fighters that as an amateur, it's okay to have a couple of losses as an amateur, because when you go pro, your record starts again at 0-0.
Yeah.
So get all of your experience as an amateur. Have your hard fights as an amateur. So when it's time to go pro, you're going to be winning because you're going to believe in all your hard work and stuff. So they have to understand, like, everything's not going to be perfect, especially when you first start. You know, we all take there's so many ups and downs as a fighter that if they don't learn that early and they learn it later, then it could be a lot more discouraging if you go, you know, undefeated, a bunch of fights, and then you think you're this great fighter, but, you know, you didn't fight the highest competition. And then when you do, you know, you lose, and it shows that you were not really fighting the highest competition earlier in your career.
I mean, that goes even to training. You got to, like, we've all been in situations where, like, yo, I'll take this dude out. And then you don't know who he is. And, you know, the next minute you're wadded up and you're like, whoa, what happened? And you have to have that. We all have a friend that was explaining to me that he was the big fish at the gym that he was in. So he would go in and he would not be, you know, he could do whatever he wanted. He could school everybody in the gym, and he was the best at the gym. And it took a loss to him to go, whoa, wait a minute. I'm only at the best at that gym.
Yeah.
I've only figured those guys out, you know? So you have to be able to take that and learn from it.
If you're the best in the training room, then you're in the wrong training room.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you're not seeking out better, you know,
Yeah, exactly.
if you're comfortable with being the best, and you're not looking to be challenged, you're never going to improve, and you're going to have a false sense of confidence.
Yeah. Really, when you're coming up, you need those challenges as an amateur. You know, expose those holes so you could close those gaps. Like Matt was saying, once you turn pro, you turn back to 0-0. You need those gaps filled.
All right, I know you got to keep going, Matt. What is the Panda story? Like, what would be a message that you want people that don't know you that will know you? Because we're gonna be so freaking famous that everyone's gonna know who Panda is. So
I just
like,
want people to know that my goal is to take people who need help and give them help through martial arts, and, you know, try to be accepting to everyone and give everybody a second chance, because we all deserve one. And that's it, man.
I agree with that. Just
Beautiful.
You know, good people keep it. You know, I say it all the time. It's just if you have negative, you know, if you're putting out negative, you're just breeding it, you know. So anything negative, cut it out. If people are negative, try and, you know, put something positive into them. Hopefully you could change it. So,
Yeah.
you know, any closing remarks there, Panda?
No, man, it's just great to talk to you guys again, man. Stay in touch.
Oh, definitely.
I got to get back to teaching these killers, man. And hope to talk to you guys again soon.
Do
All right,
your
have a
thing,
good
and thank you very much for joining us, and we will hit you up and make you share this podcast everywhere on your social media when we set it out.
All right, brother.
All right, buddy.
All
Thanks,
right,
buddy.
cool. Thank you.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for joining us, and we're out of here. And don't say boom.
Boom.